start the presentation?
Yes, we can do that. Actually, we have, I'm looking at the council chambers, and I just want to ask Sabrina if there are any members of the public at the council chambers. Just curious.
Nope, we don't have anybody in here, and I just sent, I put in the chat for Manny the comment that we received on the web.
Gotcha. So we got some web comments, and we have one person here from the name. I see we have a council member, Stuckey. The sign up IDs. Is that correct? I'm guessing Suresh is part of Tool Design.
No.
No? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, I'm a new citizen of Oak Harbor. I run a company called Gaussian Solutions. And we are involved with USDOT for transportation data equity initiatives. Since I'm new to the city, I thought I'll hear in and see, maybe connect with people. I did read through the proposal and I have some comments. So.
Oh, very good. Welcome. I'm sorry I misunderstood. I thought. Okay,
All cool.
Meeting. All right. I think we'll respect everybody's time, and yeah, let's start the meeting. And if possible, if you can record it, that would be awesome. And put it on the website later on for public access. All right, sounds good. Thank you.
So yes, I guess record the meeting.
Recording in progress.
I think we're recording now. All right. Well, thank you again very much for participating in of this open house. Thank you for waiting for us while we solved all those technical issues. I think we should be good. Be good to go. So hey, we have a. Here we go. So our agenda for tonight, we're gonna have some introductions, and mostly we want to hear who you are and kind of your experience in Oak Harbor. Then we're gonna go through a bit of a background and context to kind of, especially for newer members of or members, attendees that have not been participating all along the study, so that to provide a bit of context on what we're doing. What are the vision and goals for the study, a bit of what we found in existing conditions, a report on our community engagement activities, and more on the actual network analysis and proposed plan. I should probably would preface that we're conducting this virtual open house after completing an administrative draft, and also an initial draft of this plan. We'll see a bit more in the coming slides. First, let's do a few introductions. So we're not that many, and I think what we'd like to know is who you are, who you represent, but also mostly what is your personal experience walking, biking, and rolling in Oak Harbor. And by rolling, we mean using, if for any reason you have used a personal mobility device like a wheelchair or a walker, or maybe it's a scooter or a skateboard. I guess I'll start. I'm Manuel Soto, principal planner with Tool Design, and I'm the project manager in this project. And I don't live in Oak Harbor, but I do live in the suburbs, not necessarily in the central Seattle. And I live in a town called Sammamish, which is in eastern King County, and I do use my bike to do small short trips, to go to the grocery store, and sometimes go to Redmond to get on a bus to Seattle to come to work, like today. Let me see the gallery. Anish, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Anish. I'm a planner at Tool Design. I have visited Oak Harbor one time. My experience biking, CAC was kind enough to take myself and Quinn, the former project manager on this plan, on a bike tour of around Oak Harbor. So that is my experience. Quinn, CAC, would you like to go next?
Sure. CAC Mac, principal planner of the city of Oak Harbor, managing the project from the city side. I lived in Oak Harbor for a long time. I've worked here for almost 17 years. I lived here for almost 13. Now I commute from Mount Vernon. I ride regularly, and when I was living in Oak Harbor, I did ride around town on my bike for dinner and for lunch and to work. I have ridden a lot of the streets in Oak Harbor, so I'm looking forward to a coordinated effort for a nice plan for the city, connected networks. I think it'll be a good asset for the city.
Good. Let's have Suresh. Would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. My name is Suresh. I'm a recent transplant to Oak Harbor. That I have in my own company. It's called Gaussian Solutions. We, as I mentioned earlier, we work with USDOT on one of the transportation data equity. It's sponsored by USDOT. I walked in the downtown. That's one of my favorite things. Deception Pass, Joseph Whitby Park. But I have not done much of walking or biking in the city itself. However, I do see a lot of folks in wheelchairs, and I always observe what is the sidewalk connectivity and accessibility of the sidewalk is. That's sort of what I do. So I quickly scan any city that I go to and make notes. So that's my experience, and thank you for the opportunity there.
Very good. Thank you. Let's, Councilmember Stuckey, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. So, Brian Stuckey, I own a funeral home on council. I lived here since 2016. I wish I could say I could ride a skateboard. However, that is not my forte. It's probably been 20 years since I've been on one. I do a lot of walking, but I also have a kiddo who's special needs, autism, but because of that, I do spend a lot of time in circles with folks that do have special needs. So transportation and accessibility is something that I get to talk to a lot from community members. So looking forward to seeing this proceed and how we can make our streets safer and easier to use.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's great to know. Let's see, Macaulay, is that the right way?
Good evening.
Macaulay.
Mikhail Finkel. I'm with the City of Oak Harbor in the administrative office, and I'm here for administrative support, but I am a city resident, lived here for 2 years, and live near the downtown, so we do a lot of walking to events in that area, and I have a 6-year-old who just learned to ride her bike in Windjammer Park this last month, so.
It's good. It's good. Sabrina?
Sabrina Combs. I'm the Communications and IT Manager. I work in the administrative office as well, and I like to walk around the city. Sometimes I walk to work. I also enjoy walking to community events like McHale and, enjoying some of the outdoor activities we have. So it's really nice when we have a clean path to do that, and it's easy to do. So I'm excited about this project.
Excellent. I think that's everyone. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. All right, let's talk a bit about the background and context. It's not a very long presentation, so bear with us, and we can give you a bit of a kind of where we are in the process. So first of all, what is active transportation? For the purpose of this study and in general, this refers to any form of human-powered transportation that includes walking, bicycling, skateboarding, or riding a scooter, or using a mobility device. And by that, typically we're thinking on a personal device like an electric-powered wheelchair, or a regular wheelchair, or an e-bike, or an e-scooter. The thing about active transportation is that by walking or by engaging in a human-powered transportation, that enhances the well-being of people, of the community, as well as quality of life. There's proven research about how that improves quality of life and productivity and health, reducing health risks, etc. It does improve mobility. In the sense that it provides more freedom to people to move around, and if we focus on planning and designing for active transportation, we also increase safety and create a more attractive environment for people to walk or bike on. And of course, by shifting trips that could have been done on an automobile, it reduces greenhouse gas emissions, and generally. Active transportation trips are shorter, and so they tend to be more local, and then people engage in more activities in the local community and support the local economy. So that's why it's important. Why are we planning for active transportation? Well, as Oak Harbor continues to grow, there's an increased demand for more and comfortable options to get around the city by walking, rolling, or cycling. As some of you mentioned, you either walk for some trips around the city, or you have children that walks or bikes around the city, or that have special needs, and that basically some level of mobility freedom. It's always good for them, and it's good for you, and good for the city. And also, there's active transportation does have a connection, provides an opportunity to make the city more attractive place for new residents and businesses. There is an economic development factor into it. So in terms of the vision for this plan, the main vision is to create a network that invites people of all ages and abilities to walk, bike, and roll throughout Oak Harbor. So again, being able to provide a sufficient or a key network that will allow people to move around Oak Harbor with freedom, independence, and enjoy life in Oak Harbor. In terms of the document itself, or in terms of the plan itself, the main goals are related to mobility, to health, to safety, to equity. We want to make walking, bicycling, and rolling a comfortable and attractive transportation option. One more option, we want to promote physical and mental health by creating better infrastructure that supports physical activity and social interaction. There's definitely a focus on eliminating fatalities and severe injuries for pedestrians and bicyclists by redesigning streets, educating road users, but perhaps more importantly by implementing proven safety countermeasures, slowing down things a bit, calming traffic a bit, so that everybody can use the road safely. And there's definitely an element of equity, being able to provide accessible facilities for all neighborhoods, all people, and investments in pedestrians and bicycle facilities that serve those with the highest need, and that could be either minorities, low-income individuals, but also there's in Washington State there's up to 30% of the population doesn't drive, so they also deserve an option to be able to move. In terms of the project timeline, we are kind of in the middle of this chart. you know, and in the spring we started with what we call the discovery phase, which is basically we went out there and we learned from the community, we learned by visiting Oak Harbor, we learned by researching existing plans and policies, and also by doing technical analysis, like analyzing the existing street network, analyzing how many the different bike facilities that exist today, analyzing the sidewalk network and crossings in Oak Harbor, and conducting an outreach, a round of outreach, conducting focus groups, talking to stakeholders, doing open house. Not an open house, like tabling events or pop-ups, and kind of getting, and also an interactive website to get as much feedback as possible. With all the information that we collected, we then developed a policy programs and project recommendations, and basically during the summer, and kind of the product of that is the administrative draft that we currently have on the website. And that has been that is being shared widely for people to comment and to review and comment. And that's kind of where we are right now. In the fall of 2023, we're kind of at the start of this review process. And then we'll take the feedback and make updates to the plan. And the goal is that by winter, by early next year, we can once we have included the feedback and develop some conceptual designs, specific conceptual designs and projects or catalyst projects, we can have a final plan that gets adopted by City Council. And from there, it's more like the city starts implementing the plan. A bit on the existing additions. Well, we said that we had reviewed existing plans, and there's a number of them. This plan basically doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's not independent from everything else. We do take a look at the city code. We take a look at the capital improvements plan. What's funded and what's not funded. What's coming up down the pipeline. We take a look at the transportation plan, and we take a look at the parks, recreation, and open space plan, and also non-motorized plans, as well as an ADA transition plan. It's very important to keep that into consideration and to design facilities that will be accessible by everybody. And we also looked at existing conditions, kind of what's there today. This is a map that reflects, it's sort of an inventory that shows the current network of sidewalks, where there are marked crosswalks and as well as trails. So this provides a view of what the existing pedestrian facilities are. And I'll get to your question in just a second. And then we also did an inventory of existing bicycle facilities, mostly where do we have where the city has bike lanes, marked bike lanes and trails. Suresh, you have your hand up.
Yes, I was wondering for the previous slide, right? Where did you get the data from?
Oh, from the city.
I see. City has the data. I was looking at OpenStreetMap and this is nothing like this, and I was looking at the Oak Harbor city website and I couldn't find any data. So I was wondering whether it's your own data or it's from the city.
Yeah, no. I think it's the city's data. The city shared their GIS files have more detailed data than what you can find on OpenStreetMap.
Do you also include the curb ramps in your analysis to see if a person in wheelchair can safely transition from sidewalks to the street network?
I don't think so. I don't think we did. But it's very detailed data. That there's many. That's actually a very good question, because there's limitations in the data that is available, and this is not only in Oak Harbor, everywhere, in every city in the state. There's a lot of data that could be collected on sidewalks, that generally it doesn't, if it gets collected, it's for specific projects. It doesn't generally get collected for an entire city, for an entire network. It's a lot of data that could be analyzed, and it's very hard to maintain, actually update it. So that's usually why it doesn't happen. So we said that we did look at the networks, what's available. We did look at the plans, and we also spent some time listening from the community. And Anish will give us a little summary of what we've done.
Thanks, Manuel. So here is a screenshot of a web map that we did. Web map was one of 4 streams of engagement that we did. This web map, an online survey. We held focus groups, and we had a pop-up at the Holland Happening Festival. So this is just what the web map looked like. I have some slides later on to get into more detail about where people left comments and what they said. Next slide, please. This is a photograph of the focus groups that we held. We spoke with 3 groups: Big Brothers and Sisters, the Opportunity Council, and Whidbey Island Bicycle Club. Some of the takeaways from these focus groups were that the sidewalk network is lacking, especially for people who use mobility devices. There are a lot of curb cuts, so Suresh, this was actually brought up by people in these focus groups. Another takeaway was that even experienced bicyclists don't necessarily feel comfortable biking on major streets in Oak Harbor. Another theme during these focus groups was around biking around for families and children. It was brought up that more facilities would allow parents to feel more comfortable allowing their kids to bike freely throughout Oak Harbor. Currently, parents don't necessarily feel comfortable allowing their kids to walk or bike on their own. Next slide, please. Here is a picture of the booth that we had at the Holland Happening Festival. Over the course of the weekend, we spoke with almost 350 people. The nature of these interactions was very more introductory. A lot of people weren't familiar with active transportation, so we were explaining what it is. And the reaction we got was, for the most part, pretty positive around, "Oh wow, this is so cool! I'm glad you're doing this," or we're very supportive of biking and making Oak Harbor friendlier to walking and biking. So this, for the vast majority, were positive reactions during our conversations. Next slide, please. So this is a text-heavy slide about the survey that we did. 163 people responded to the survey. 80% of them live in Oak Harbor, and one interesting takeaway was about 1/5 of survey respondents have some disability that affects their ability to get around. The feedback around walking in Oak Harbor, most people want some sort of physical protection from cars while walking, even if it's on a local neighborhood street with low volume of traffic. Some of the factors that would improve people's walking experience would be more sidewalks and safer crossings. The feedback on biking was that only 1/4 of respondents feel comfortable biking in a bike lane. Respondents mostly preferred separated bike lanes to put more distance between traveling cars. Some of the biggest factors to improve people's biking experience are connected bikeway network and protected lanes on streets to make it feel safer. Next slide, please. So this slide, back to the web map, this slide shows the location for where people left comments. People left comments pretty evenly distributed throughout Oak Harbor. Some of the more detailed that we'll drill into are they left comments around where they currently bike to, where they don't bike to but want to bike to, where they currently walk to, where they don't walk to but would like to, and where they have encountered a barrier to walking or a barrier to biking. And then subsequent slides we'll get into more detail. So these, you can see here, the current This shows destinations that people currently bicycle to, and the Naval Air Station, the waterfront, and Fort Nugent Park are some of the most common destinations. This slide shows current walking destinations, and most of them are concentrated in the city proper, especially along the waterfront and Pioneer Way. This shows where people would like to bike to, and common destinations that arose were just the downtown area and the northeast parts of the city. This slide shows where places where respondents have encountered barriers to biking, and barriers are pretty evenly spread throughout the city, but along major roads like Swantown, Heller Street, Whidbey Avenue, and Fort Nugent Road, those are the most commonly reported places of barriers. And this slide shows barriers to walking, also similarly evenly distributed, but concentrated along Northeast 7th Avenue and Barrington Drive.
Very good. So, in addition to I guess I said earlier that we did look at the networks, the existing information, and then looking at that information, then we did an assessment of what is the sidewalk coverage and the type of coverage. So there's generally four categories in this map, but the main three categories related to sidewalks. It's whether the street has sidewalks on both sides, whether it has only on one side, and or whether there's no sidewalks. So most of the purpose of this analysis is to understand gaps and which gaps are, try to identify which gaps are more important than others to basically fix, to be able to fill in. Then we also did an analysis of categorization analysis of all crossings in the city, all intersections in a way, and kind of categorized them in four levels of traffic stress. This is a bit of a standard analysis, that we do in the profession, and there's a methodology that we follow that is based on a study from a document from ODOT, from Oregon Department of Transportation. That we've done a few adjustments to basically customize for the Oak Harbor condition. But in essence, what they do is that it considers how big the street is, how many lanes of traffic there are, what is the traffic volume on that street, what is the typical speed, and what are kind of like general conditions for crossings, whether there are any type of traffic. I guess the technical name is traffic control devices, what type of traffic controls there are, whether there's a traffic signal, whether there are four-way stops or just a two-way stops or an unsignalized intersection. And with that, based on those conditions, we identified intersections that are the kind of higher stress in that regard. Typically, the ones that you see in red, which are stress level 4, are the most problematic ones, or the ones that are more difficult to cross, given either speed or the length of the crossing, or based on the number of lanes. And it helps us to identify, where to focus energy and resources. And a similar analysis we do for bicycle routes, and that's also another 4 categories of traffic stress, and using similar parameters and metrics. What is the traffic volume on the street, or how wide the street is, or how many lanes of traffic there are, and types of facilities that are available for bicyclists. So that's why you see kind of lower levels of stress in all residential streets and neighborhoods, inside neighborhoods, and you see higher levels of stress in all the main arterials and connectors and avenues in the city. which generally have more traffic and are wider and more, and where you will be biking in more unprotected condition. So we took all those elements into consideration to develop a plan, and in this plan there's a number of recommendations for bike facilities, and which include the 6 types that you see here. And the reason for this slide is to give a little bit of a definition for each type of facility. There is, starting from the top left, there's a bike lane, which is your classic bike lane, which is just a space on the roadway that is painted as bike lane, and that's the only demarcation that exists. Then there's also kind of a level up is to provide a separated bike lane in which or maybe 2 levels up. It's in terms of protection, where you provide a separated bike lane where there's a vertical element such as a flex post or a raised median or a fence or a planter that separates you from vehicle traffic or from the parking lane. And there's also a horizontal separation, which is a buffer, either a distance or it could be a curb or a raised curb or median that is providing you that distance of that protection. Then there's also something called a buffered bike lane, which is kind of in between the separated bike lane and a bike lane, which is where it's also paint on the ground, but there's more distance, more buffering between the travel way, the lane, the roadway, the vehicle lane, and the bicycle lane. Then there's also other type of facilities, like there's what we call a neighborhood greenway, or what we call kind of not just to design or as in this project, but in the industry, a neighborhood greenway, which is typically a low traffic street, typically a neighborhood street where there's low volumes of traffic, traffic that moves at a low speeds, and that gives bicycle a better environment to bike. And that with some treatments, like adding a few treatments to calm traffic, like including small roundabouts or including some pinch points or some speed cushions, the traffic and travel of vehicles can be controlled on the street, and then bicycles or people bicycling get a better experience and consistent experience through these facilities. Then there's what is called a shared use path, which is typically a trail that it's a shared use where pedestrians and bicycles can use together, and they're typically wide, about 12 feet wide, assuming 6 feet for each direction of travel, and allowing, for instance, either people walking and biking to pass each other, or allowing groups of people to walk together side by side, or a couple of bicyclists to cycle together side by side. And a similar condition is a side path, which is in essence a shared use path that it's on the side of a road, so much bigger sidewalk condition or trail that allows both pedestrians and bicyclists to travel. So how did we kind of use those types of facilities? How did we recommend them? We have 2 sets of networks that are recommendations in this plan. This one is what we call the Bike Pass network, which is a long-term vision for a city-wide network. And by that long-term vision, we mean there's a number of different facilities on how to treat and provide a lot of density in the network and connectivity in the network. So for everybody, and comprehensive, covering all of the city to provide everybody with mobility options. A network that can be used by bicycles, e-bikes, scooters, and wheelchairs. But that can be used by what we call all ages and abilities, by everybody. And there's also some that it's connected with some with the the system of trails, and it also includes some new connections or trail connections that will create more connections in the network and kind of create a complete and continuous network. And there's also a network for sidewalks and walkways, which mostly focuses on closing gaps where we identified there were sidewalk gaps. Most of what you see, and basically this is very similar to the map that we showed you before, but the difference is that there's the yellow, the very kind of the fat yellow line that it's identifying the locations, mostly locations where there are no sidewalks today, that will be important to have provide those some level of either a sidewalk or a walkway to provide a walking route and at areas of the city which will allow people to connect to destinations and travel by foot. And from there, from identifying, this long-term bicycle network and pedestrian network, then which recognizing that it's something that it's a lot of work, a lot of investment. We working together with the city, we identify a network of key corridors or catalyst or priority corridors or catalyst projects, which is the ones that we are showing in this map. And there's 9 corridors that have been identified, going from identifying all the north-south corridors from left to right. We have Heller and Swantown on the western side of the city. Then we have SR20, with the kind of crosses the city north to kind of divides the city into west and east, from probably north to south, and connecting the city with other communities. And then there's Midway Boulevard, which continues to be a Goldie Street up to into the base. And then there's O'Leary Street, O'Leary and Pasek Streets, which provide a north-south connection on the eastern side of the community, at the eastern end of the community. And then traveling east to west or west to east, from north to south, we have Crosby Avenue, providing a connection between Heller and Oak Harbor, and providing a complete or a connected or structuring network in that part of the city. Then through the middle part of the city, we have 3rd and 4th Avenue, which we're showing them or the corridor between Regatta and the high school, and continuing to Heller to provide a complete and continuous corridor. Barrington Drive, continuing south, we have Barrington Drive that provides a connection in the southern part of the city. And then we have Pioneer Way and Bayshore, providing a connection through the downtown area and the waterfront. And finally, on the southwest corner, we have Fort Nugget that provides a connection to that part of town. And for each of these catalyst projects, we developed a very high-level concept on kind of what the typical cross-section might look like, based on the current right-of-way, how that right-of-way can be reorganized to provide being able to include better bicycle facilities, better walking facilities, and at the same time maintain the sufficient capacity and accommodation for vehicle traffic. Perhaps the most important elements that we are including here is there's along SR20. The plan looks to develop a bidirectional, separated bidirectional or protected bidirectional bike facility on the eastern side of the SR20 that can provide again, a protected facility, clearly marked facility for people to travel along SR20. That if we look at Midway Boulevard, there's also a protected bidirectional facility on the eastern side of Midway Boulevard that will connect to SR20 and create a continuous facility. And if we looked at Bayshore, Bayshore Pioneer Way, that the bidirectional facility that we see on the southern part of end of Bayshore, kind of along the water, will be connected to Midway and provide a continuous. Basically, this cross sections are starting to show a network of bidirectional facilities that are all connected and providing a continuous, continuous travel, allowing continuous travel for people on bicycles. Then streets like Barrington Barrington and Midway as well kind of have a more of a road diet type condition in which they go from 4 lanes of traffic to 3 lanes of traffic, in which there's 2 lanes of traffic, one in each direction, and a center lane for turning movements that will maintain the performance of that street in terms of being able to move traffic and capacity. And then there's more smaller streets, or more than smaller, more like local residential streets going through neighborhoods in which bike lanes are accommodated on each side of the street, like O'Leary and Passek Street, or Heller and Swantown, or 3rd and 4th, where the profile there, it's mostly, or the profile there will include some neighborhood greenway elements that to calm traffic and slow down speeds, so that those streets can be used as safe bicycle routes. And that completes our presentation. So any comments, questions?
I do have one question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize. I'm in the car, so doing a hands-free here. In your presentation, when you're talking about bikes and bike lanes, do you make any distinction on e-bikes versus non-e-bikes? Does that make any difference in this planning process?
That is a very good question. I think we do acknowledge there's a difference between regular bikes and e-bikes, and part of the reason to develop adequate facilities in terms of design and in terms of width is to be able to accommodate e-bikes and being able to accommodate the situation in which e-bikes can pass other bikes. So enough room for that to happen, basically. Same thing on the shared use pathways, or shared use paths. That there's also generally the standard there is to provide a 12-foot path that will provide sufficient width for the operation of an e-bike, a mixed condition between e-bikes and regular bikes or people walking.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate the presentation.
You're welcome. Any other comments?
Yeah, not seeing any other comments or anything on the chat.
Stop sharing for the moment.
Right. I don't know if we have anything more to add, anyone?
No, not really. I think has been a good exercise for us to being able to complete this draft and put together these presentations. It's a kind of a good summary to how to see where we're at and what we need to do next.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we'll definitely be able to post this on the web so that this information can be viewed at any time. So it's a nice thing about virtual open house is you can have these recordings out. So
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's true.
So we'll continue on that, and I think to anybody that would come and watch this, we are hoping to adopt the active transportation plan by the end of the year. Maybe it'll spill over to the beginning of next year, but we're hoping to wrap it up, which would be within our schedule and budget for the project. We are hoping to have public hearings on it towards the very end. We have 3 projects that we are going to actually do some more design work on, just to help implement, give more kind of weight behind implementing or taking it something to a bid package so that we can start implementing some projects. So we have a little more work on the plan, but the draft has most of the basic things in there in terms of the network, the projects, and so on. So anyway, there's still a little more work to be done, and we'll be going to Planning Commission and City Council, giving them updates on this. So it's going to be a process. Welcome. I don't have anything else to add. We can close the meeting out with, if that's okay with everybody.
Your call.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
I see. When I talk, I see my face in the 2 screens there of the council.
Yeah. Councilman Stuckey, do you have any other thoughts or comments before we close the meeting?
No, again, appreciate the presentation and looking forward to future updates. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'll call it good. Have a great evening and the rest of your week, and we'll have more updates soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a good evening.
Recording stopped.
Thank you, Sabrina. Appreciate it.